Well, good evening. Yes, my name's Craig, otherwise known as DJ Works. Been collecting for well over 40 years, DJing just over 40 years, and dealing kind of that sort of time too. And my collection has spanned many genres, many decades, and I'm constantly looking for styles that challenge me and interest me. Don't really profess to keep to the norm, follow what everybody else is listening to. Yeah, I'll listen to the Pink Floyd and everything else like that that seems to be on the VC, but my taste can be sometimes unique, which makes it interesting, doesn't it? And I decided to make my very first video for the VC, and not only that, it's kind of a contest entry, although I'm not really bothered about entering. I just thought I would enter 10 obscure records, which I hopefully think you'll find interesting. I live in Texas, as you can tell by the accent, a Texas local, not really. Lived in England most of my life, moved out here to Texas in 2017, right before Hurricane Harvey, so that was interesting. But anyway, where shall we start? Well, I thought I'd give some honourable mentions first. Being a DJ, one of the things about DJing is that you're always looking for something unique, something that the next person doesn't have. That just goes along with the culture. And I'll start off with a typical DJ release. My DJ background is really underground dance music, electronic music, and this is something typical that a DJ would look for, and that's a white label, something that cannot be identified when you're spinning on the decks. Play that, and nobody knows what it is. This one actually has the artist name written on it. Now this is DJ Milo, and it came as a freebie with a well-known DJ magazine called DJ from the UK. But what makes this a little bit different is that it is the test pressing, white label test pressing. Now, I've had this for a number of years and really came across it in a box like many of us do. And when I came here to Texas after I'd moved all my collection, and I entered it on Discogs because it wasn't there. Yes, the full artwork version's there that came free with the magazine. But this white label test pressing isn't, or wasn't, I should say. So I entered it. It's been on there 2 years, just over, I think, and I'm the only person that has it. One copy, which doesn't surprise me because one of my best friends was the business and promotions manager for DJ magazine for many years, and I was able to get lots of rarities and different things that weren't otherwise available. So that's just a little honourable mention. I mean, my collection spans many releases like this. I could do hundreds of releases just on white label test pressings that only DJs got in very short supply. Another honourable mention. This is Mick Kahn, who some may remember was originally in the group Japan. Went on to do many projects with two of the other Japan members, Steve Jansen and Richard Barbieri, otherwise known as JBK. They collaborated with many other artists. This is his solo single, was released on Invisible Hands, a UK label. The A-side is The Jump, and the B-side is At the End Be Boot. Interesting title, but that is excellent. It's a real funky beat with the typical Mick Kahn sliding fretless bass sound. And it's interesting because when you look on Discogs, I think it's less than 20 people profess to own it. So just something else that's a little bit interesting. These next three actually all come from a label called New Flesh Records, which is one of the I wouldn't say new boys on the block, but it's a reasonably new label promoting new school electro. So that's kind of the new electro sound, very dark at times. Not like the early electro from the 80s that kind of developed into hip hop. But a lot of the releases on New Flesh are very hard to come by. This particular one, Rogue Frequency, is a clear vinyl. only 20 copies were pressed. And what you find is, I know electronic music and underground dance music isn't everybody's cup of tea, particularly here in the US. But what you find is that market for underground dance music, techno, electro, house, on these small labels is highly collectible. Many talk about the value of rock records, some of the original presses of Led Zeppelin and things like that. You get into the underground electronic scene and you'll be amazed at the price of some of the records. These two are really interesting. I thought these are double 7-inch releases. They're like mini albums, mini LPs on New Flesh, but they're all lathe cut records. The first two releases, 2 7-inches and 1 5-inch record. The first mini LP is on this New Flesh mini LP 1, a kind of human being. That's got a real kind of 80s electronic sound to it, sort of slow down tempo electro. Whereas the mini LP 02, Medusa, her Lift ins All, is, again, it's got that little 5-inch lathe cut record and 2 7-inches double pack. That's more the upbeat electro, new school, darker new school electro that those of us that are into it come to appreciate. So, moving on to the 10, which I don't think many people will have, but you tell me if I'm right or not. I'll love to read it in the notes. The first one is, I was a big Gary Numan fan for many years, and one of the releases that many people search for is this. This is the compilation album, which was released by Beggars Banquet in Germany. I always loved the artwork with this. The labels had that telecom era look, but this was a compilation that Gary deleted. He didn't give Beggars Banquet permission to release this, and I think a few days after it was put out in Germany, it was deleted. So this title here, Photograph, is always one of those elusive titles that many collectors, Numan collectors, lusted after. The originals of this came like this on a gatefold album and also on a cassette. There have been bootlegs subsequently released over time, which you will find on Discogs listed. I don't think they're available for sale now because, like Discogs, they've made buying bootleg unofficial releases very hard over recent years. I heard that Numan's own management company, if they become aware of the bootleg copies being listed for sale online, they get them pulled. So yeah, the original is definitely something to have. You can get it. I had to get that from Germany, and what makes it hard is what you'll find is on the used market, it's really hard to get a clean copy. A lot of them come up with writing on the sleeves, on the labels, people's names. So finding one that's really clean is quite challenging. The next one is another English release, and this is a sampler. It's a double LP. I don't know if you're going to see this. I don't know if you can quite see it. I'm trying to detect it's got something written on it. And it's written on in silver glitter. So the wording is actually, if I take it out, that might be clearer. Recommended record sampler. And this is a sampler of avant-garde experimental electronic music from 84, I think it is. Let me just check that. I did get it up on my iPad. Let's have a look. 82. So abstract art rock, experimental, avant-garde, double album. I've never seen one in all the years I've been dealing. This is the only copy I ever came across, and I kept it. It folds out almost like a fanzine type artwork. So if you like your avant-garde and experimental music, you might want to check that out if you can find a copy. I've not seen any. They are available on Discogs. I've seen them for sale there. something a bit different. Now this next one, I wasn't even aware of this artist. The artist is, let me take the cover out of the plastic, Nina Nielsen. And the album is Love and Terror in the Wilderness. Now I'm into a band called Biosphere, and the founder of that band, Geir Jensen, Norway, he does everything electronic, ambient, techno, experimental, almost like film score type music. Well, I bought one of his latest releases through his label, which is called Biophon, and they're in Oslo and Berlin. And when the order came, they sent me a free CD, and it was this album. And it's absolutely fantastic. It's not electronic at all. It's a real acoustic material, female artist, really atmospheric. I can do nothing but recommend it. If you like something just to sit down and listen to and forget the world, especially if you've got a good system. I'm into good audio myself. So if you like that kind of thing, I'd give it a listen. Nina Nielsen. This next band, now there was some debate on this years ago. I lived in the Milton Keynes area of England, which is in Buckinghamshire, about 50 miles north of London. And I would occasionally see this album pop up amongst local dealers. And it only ever seemed to be in that area. The band is called Magritte. The album's called Sea Fever, and it's kind of art rock, acoustic rock. Really good, actually. Pretty good, from 1984. The band members are actually from the Leicestershire and Northamptonshire area of England, which incidentally are counties around Buckinghamshire, so the tie to Milton Keynes was pretty logical, really. But yeah, this is signed as well on the back. Really hard to come by, but if you can get it, again, I'd recommend it. Good if you like art rock, a little bit of kind of acoustic rock electronics. Now, here's another one which is very limited. It's something I always keep my ears and eyes open for through the various websites that I access to buy new records. A lot of them are in Europe. This is kind of an ambient techno electro double album. It's a limited edition, and I think, let me just check the pressing quantities. The pressing quantities was 100. The artist is Cygnus, and the album is called Cosmos, and it's on Fundamental Records. Now the vinyl is just plain black, but it came with a very limited 7-inch single in addition to the double vinyl pack. And the 7-inch is pressed on like a brownish red marble vinyl. What makes my copy a little bit extra special is I got 2 of the 7 inches. The label I actually got this direct from the label, and they sent it to me, obviously in error. Sent me 2 copies of the 7-inch single, so I doubt if many other people got 2, unless of course the label was feeling generous, I should say, and sent out 2 to everybody. Next one, again, this really kind of typifies a lot of the stuff I would play as a DJ. This is Delano Smith. He's kind of was classified as the new school Detroit sound, very tech house orientated. This is his 10-inch Cascade Extended EP. I say EP is just 1 track each side. 10-inch silver pressing, very limited. I think 500 copies. Don't see it come up too often. You can buy it on Discogs. It's not a huge amount of money, but it is quite limited. The next one was a release that was a Kickstarter project, and every time I show this, to my friends and people in the music groups. They do get a bit excited. This one was limited to 300 copies. It's Gordon Withers, and it's Dark Side of the Moon on cello. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, I've got Dark Side of the Moon like most collectors have, but to hear it just played acoustically on cello, and it's an audiophile 180 gram pressing, very, very limited, really hard to come by. I mean, it doesn't sell for huge amounts of money, or it hasn't done in the past, but I think it's becoming more and more desirable. So if you can get it, I would say get it before it gets too expensive. My next one, getting there, was number 8, is a limited colour vinyl 12-inch. The artist is Lawson. Now, there was only 100 copies of this first. This is acid techno. Really nice, kind of marbled, orangey vinyl. Now, Lawson did a huge underground acid track in 1995 called Dry Ray, which is probably up there as one of the most collectible acid 12s from that era. And he kind of went quiet for about 5 or 6 years, didn't hear anything from him. And then I think there was a release in 2020. Then he came out with this in 2021. It's like a white label stamped both sides, 100. I don't know how many people I have on the PC, but on Discord there's only 30 people saying they have it. Changing styles a little bit, you could say, is the next release. It's another new release, another coloured vinyl, limited pressing, kind of a transparent silver grey, limited edition, as I said, and this was limited to 250 copies. And this is the KVB, kind of a shoegaze minimal wave band. This is them live in Paris, live at the Cigale, recorded 29th of January 2020. This was released on Invader Records. Now, I like Invader Records. They do some really good releases, particularly soundtracks. I've got some really good limited pressings like Ex Machina, which is great. That's really nice, deep electronic soundtrack music. And my final, number 10. There's a bit of a story goes with this. This is Thomas Matfuno and the Blacks Unlimited. This is his 12-inch single, Corruption, with Corruption dub on the B-side. This is on his original Zimbabwe label, Chimurengo Music, and it came in 2 guises. It came in like in a solid artwork cover like this, but also in a die-cut cover. So essentially, the label was cut out of the centre, and I've had both copies, and I entered them both on Discogs. The die-cut one seems to be rarer. I think there's only a couple of people profess to own that on Discogs, and on this one, only 9 people say they have it. It's very African type. This is more political. In fact, the words to the song, Corruption, seem very appropriate at the moment. Look around at the world's governments. But I got that brand new, unplayed. I went to buy a record from a local guy in the Philippines. Can't remember what the record was. Got there, asked me if I wanted to buy a collection. Turns out he wanted to get rid of his deceased brother's recollection that he'd been sitting on for a few years. And his brother turned out to be an ex-executive of Rough Trade Records. So bulk of the collection was basically new records, never played. Got a whole batch, and I've still got quite a few Thomas Matfuno albums, a few 12 inches. I can't remember everything else I got, but yeah, sometimes you win. I got it cheap, and sometimes you lose. But so that's it, really. That's a little bit eclectic. I could have taken the easy way out and just shown all white label 12s from the DJ and dance music environment, which I doubt very many people have. I certainly haven't seen too many people on the VC show any dance music. But if you've got it, let's see it. I'd love to see more electronic and more dance-orientated music. So that's it. That's me out of here. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed the first video. Please comment, and hopefully I'll be posting again soon.